Alrighty, guys. Good evening. We had just wrapped up another day, busy day of college basketball, and first of all, what a topsy-turvy day in the ACC. All kinds of chaos going on um, just all kinds of chaos going on, especially in that conference. My goodness, uh, goodness, all kinds of crazy results. We'll get to them in just a moment. But first, we want to go over what's been going on the Atlantic 10 today, taking a look at some of the scores. Um, let's look here. Taking a look at all the scores here. Of course, we in the unexpected, surprisingly unexpected battle for first place. Fordham, normally a bottom of the barrel team in the league, no disrespect to them. It was a matchup of Rams versus Rams as VCU handily takes down Fordham, and they take care of business at the Siegel Center in Richmond. It's getting them their first home win, and I want to say, goodness, their first home win since beating. I want to say their last home win since beating Georgia Mason. Um, so about 3 weeks ago. So it's been a little bit a while because I mean, of course, I know they did have that road trip going on. They had to go to Davidson, at St. Louis, at Rhode Island, but they did lose back-to-back games at home against St. Bonaventure at Dayton. So long overdue for sure. But a little bit of a scare. But VCU fans, a little bit of a scare though. But as you can see, VCU clearly taking care of business there, and Richmond. Um, but Fordham still having an incredible season, incredible season for sure. All right, and then we got elsewhere we have Davidson and a dramatic win at home against over St. Joseph's. Who I think it was a free throw with about a second left that lifted Davidson over St. Joseph's. Um, and then you have UMass taking care of business against Rhode Island on the road in Kingston. Now, this back-to-back games Rhode Island has dropped at home. Then you have Mason holding off LaSalle at home, a surging LaSalle team at home up in Fairfax County up there, taking care of business there. And then you have Duquesne, and what was a back and forth affair for much of the game. St. Louis putting Duquesne away late by the score of 90-85, and St. Louis trying to stay in that top four in the double bye. And then last night, I know there was one A-10 game going on last night. Um, with despite a valiant effort by a struggling Loyola Chicago team, Dayton takes care of them on the road by 65-49, staying in tie for second place in the A-10. Let's take a look. Speaking of which, let's take a look at our standings here. Let's take a look at our standings here. As you can see, with the VCU beating Fordham, who was at one point and was second place today, going into today. VCU now has sole possession, first place in the Atlantic 10 with the game up over St. Louis and Dayton, and then 2 games up on Fordham, and then 3 games up on Duquesne, who are currently sitting in the fifth spot, the first team without the double bye. So this is a key though, right here. Get in that double bye. You want to finish the regular season among the top four, because that means you get the double bye in the A-10 tournament. You don't have to play that extra game, and that matters so much this year. That matters so much. Um, and then you and then you have the bottom four, and then of course, I mean, there's still a lot that these guys are kind of fighting out, fighting battling. Oops, if I can try to highlight this correctly, battling out here because they're trying to stay out of the bottom four here because the bottom four has to play that and first round game on Tuesday in the A-10 and what we call in the inside joke in the league, what we call the pillow fight round. So, of course, Richmond is in grave danger. Richmond, George Washington, um, in definitely in danger of falling into the bottom four. Davidson kind of saved themselves a little bit by beating St. Joseph. So if it's by beating St. Joseph, so they have a little bit of a leg up on St. Joseph. Should St. Joseph's lose a couple more games, they might. Dave Davidson would have the tiebreaker there. Um, but again, I want, and then Richmond being the last team with the bye, with the first round bye, 6-8 and 13-14 overall. Richmond, I believe, did they play today? No, no, they did not play. Okay, no, they did not play today. That's right, they had this today off, so they don't play again until Tuesday at home against St. Louis. So a tough stretch coming up. I mean, if you look at Richmond's schedule, I mean, like I said, they're the first team. They're like right on the edge between the first round bye, between getting the first round bye and having to play that first round game. St. Louis, I mean, they have a tough stretch here. You know, they play St. Louis, who's a top four team in the league at home. Then they have to go to VCU, who's currently in first place in the league. They also have to travel to St. Joseph's. Then they play George Mason, who got a win today, who's, you know, starting to pick up a little bit of steam here. So, and, you know, thoughts going out to Chris Mooney as he's dealing with the heart condition and he's sitting out the rest of the season. But, I mean, a lot going on in that program. I just, you know, it's tough to see them holding holding on to that last spot in the first round bye. I mean, it's very very possible that they could very well end up getting a first round bye because it's very very possible they could very well not get that first round bye and have to play in that first round game. Um, so let's see. Let's take a look here. And as far as VCU is concerned, sitting in a great position. Of course, yeah, they came off a couple of losses. Like I said, they did lose to St. Bonaventure at home, and they lost to Dayton at home last week. But coming off the break, they did not play their best game against Rhode Island, but somehow they found a way to win. They rallied back and found a way to win at the buzzer. And then they handled their business at home against the second team in second place. That's about as good as you can hope for. And VCU to me seems to be a team that is playing like a team that is first place in their conference. With the exception of a few games, they've been handling their business. They've been handling their business, and that's what you want to see. That's what you want to see. 1 game buffer. I mean, they do have a 1 game buffer over Dayton. I mean, who split with them in the regular season. But if St. Louis ends up tying them, but St. Louis and right now VCU would have the tiebreaker over St. Louis because they went on the road and beat St. Louis in Ace Ball and had that spectacular showing. But this game versus St. Louis, I mean, if you see who they get to wrap up the season, it's a more kinder slate of scheduling. For sure. They go to St. Joseph's, which road game in the A-10. You never want to write anybody off. Richmond, then you play a struggling Richmond team, reeling Richmond team at home. You get St. Louis at home, who again top 4 in the league, and then that might be a tough game. And then you get George Washington on the road, who's fighting to stay above that bottom 4 spot, fighting to stay above the bottom 4 threshold in the standings. So, not the toughest, not the easiest. So I mean, again, a softer schedule to close out the year, yes, but can't take any of these teams for granted for sure. I mean, any of these teams like Rhode Island, if you look at where Rhode Island is, they're almost at the bottom of the league, and they nearly beat VCU the other night. So you can't take any. I mean, and VCU did not bring their best stuff. Believe me, VCU did not bring their best stuff. So VCU doesn't bring their best stuff against any of these teams here. They could be very well end up being on the losing side of things for sure. All right, so so right now it looks like, let me see. So 8-6, Duquesne's at 8-6, VCU's at 11-3. That's a 3-game space between the 3-game separation between them and Duquesne. But remember, Duquesne has a head-to-head tiebreaker over us. So in essence, yeah, they are 3 games separate. There's a 3-game separation. So they need. So VCU just needs to stay ahead of Duquesne and hope Duquesne doesn't going on an absolute tear. VCU can control their own destiny. Win, and the rest will take care of itself. I think if they can win, and if they win, let's see who Duquesne plays next, because I'm really curious to see here. LaSalle, they go to LaSalle, which can be tough. I mean, LaSalle's been on the roll as of late for sure. They can be tough. They can be tough. So, but if VCU goes to St. Joseph's and win, and Duquesne goes to LaSalle and loses, um, they could very well end up being. I think they could end up clinching that double bye. I think that should be good enough to clinch that double bye. So conversely, if they lose, they could end up falling, and Dayton wins and St. Louis wins, they could end up falling to a 3-way tie for first, or even a 4-way tie for first if Fordham wins in their next game. So it could get messy. But to avoid that mess, VCU has everything they want in front of them. Take care of business. Take your opponent seriously. Close out the year strong and get ready and be ready for Brooklyn, which is where the A-10 tournament's going to be this year. All right, so there's that. Let's see now for the ACC, and man, what a crazy day it was in that league today. As we look at some of the scores, there were some pretty surprising results. Most notably, Louisville notching a win. If I can, if I can at least get them to pull that up. I mean, most notably, Louisville pulling off a big upset over Clemson. Clemson's like a top five team in the ACC going into today. Louisville is at the bottom of the league, knocks them off at home. Isn't that crazy? That is just remarkable. That is just remarkable. I mean, it goes to show from top to bottom how competitive this ACC is. I mean, it really does. Duke, and then of course Duke taking care of handling their business at Syracuse. Many thought of this to be a tough road game for Duke. Not the case. They handle their business. Now, a notable result: Virginia Tech beats Pittsburgh loses to Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. And I think Pittsburgh, I have to look at the standings, but I believe that knocks Pittsburgh out of the 1 seed. So all kinds of craziness. And I'll show you the standings in just a little bit. But if you look, but Virginia Tech winning opens up the door for a lot of possibilities. Georgia Tech, this was a non-conference. I think they were playing someone in a different division opponent, division D2 or D3 opponent. They win easily. Not that it really matters that much. Uh, Boston College, again, this also has implications as far as finishing in the bottom six in the ACC. Um, Boston College goes on the road, it gets a big road win over and holds off a late surge by Florida State, winning 75-69. Um, Miami handle Wake Forest is on the bubble, needing a big win on the road over Miami. Miami takes care of business for the most part. They win by 10 at home. Miami's been on the roll as of late. I mean, they came off a big road win over Carolina, so you were kind of, if you're a Miami fan, you're kind of hoping that they don't have a big letdown game, and that was not the case. That was certainly not the case. A little bit more of a surprising result. Notre Dame hanging around, being a thorn in the side for UVA. UVA could not shake them for most of the game, and they had a chance to win there at the end, but a chance to win there at the end, but or at least tie it, but could not did not go through, and UVA holds off Notre Dame. I mean, it was a rock fight. It was an ugly game, but um, Notre Dame. I mean, Mike Bray. I mean, is in his last season. He's a good head coach. I mean, Notre Dame has been competitive, and even though they're at the bottom of the ACC, they've been competitive in a lot of games. So credit to them for showing up. But UVA's offense was kind of. It's very concerning. If you're a UVA fan, yes, you're glad. I mean, the results ended up working itself out today, but it's been kind of worrisome. I mean, the offense has kind of been stagnant as of late. You know, the offense has been kind of stagnant. Um, I mean, their points per game average has been kind of going down a little bit, and you know, they need a little bit of a spark. And we thought that maybe they could get it going against a struggling Notre Dame team. It's a little bit worrying. It's a little bit worrying for sure. Um, a little bit concerning. But they need to work this out before the start of the ACC tournament. But nonetheless, win's a win. UVA gets it done. And now, I think with Pittsburgh losing, and if we can take a look at the standings here, and if I can pull that up, ACC, UVA with Pittsburgh losing to not UNC, but to Virginia Tech. They fall all the way back to third place in the ACC, one game behind UVA, a half a game behind Miami. Miami's played more games so far, so that's why it's a little bit funky. And fortunately for them, Clemson lost today, and Clemson has the head-to-head tiebreaker over Pittsburgh. So Clemson somehow inexplicably lost to Louisville. So thankfully for Pittsburgh, they stay in that they hold on to that top four. They don't fall any further, for sure. So a good ended up not being the worst case scenario for Pittsburgh for sure. It worked out as good as it could, considering that they lost. So UVA though, now has sole possession, of first place in the ACC, but only by the thinnest of margins, by a half game. Remember, like I said, Miami has played more games. And really, Virginia can ill afford to lose very many more games because Miami. Remember, like Miami has the head-to-head tiebreaker over UVA, and Miami, if I'm not mistaken, has a fairly doable schedule to finish out the season. Yeah, I mean they go to Virginia Tech on Tuesday, and then they finish out playing Florida State and Pittsburgh at home. So they have a more doable. They have a little bit more of a doable schedule. And UVA, if I remember correctly, they still have to go to Carolina, a hungry North Carolina team. They play Clemson at home and they play Louisville at home, but they go to Carolina, which could end up being a tough game for them. So this is a must So, they can ill afford UVA can really ill afford to slip up at all in these next few in the next couple of weeks going if they want to hold on to that ACC regular season championship. All right. So, in Pittsburgh, if we're looking at Pittsburgh's season to wrap up the season, regular season, with 4 games. I think they have 4 games remaining for them. Um, they do. It's an easier slate. They get Georgia Tech and Syracuse at home. Go to Notre Dame on the road. Then the toughest game to wrap up the regular season, Miami. I think out of the three, I think Pittsburgh will have the toughest road. Simply, I think because they have to play Miami on the road. And if you remember, Miami earlier on the season almost had Pittsburgh beat until the last 2 minutes of the game. And when Pittsburgh came storming back, and then it somehow pulled the win out of their hat. So, um, so Pittsburgh could not afford if they wanted to hold on to. This was a game. Their margin for error is very small. I mean, they cannot afford to lose anymore if they want to a not only win the ACC, but b they're in danger of falling out of the top four. So they're in trouble. So they need to hold on here. They definitely are in a little bit of a precarious position. On top of that, they're by no means a lock to get in the big tournament. I mean, I think going into today they're projected to be an 8 seed or 9 seed by many, so they're not exactly a lock yet either. Now, granted, Virginia Tech, they have had some quality wins. Virginia Tech's ranked a little bit higher in the net, but they can still ill afford to lose any games. I think they can still ill afford to lose any games. So, any more games going the rest of the season. Um, so, well, there is one more ACC game left to play. Of course, NC State playing tomorrow at North Carolina. Excuse me, they're playing at home against UNC because the reason why they're playing tomorrow is tonight the NHL's having the Stadium Series going on as they're one of their outdoor games as the Capitals are taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. So that I'm sure they did not want that to interfere with that. So they're playing. They take on UNC at home, and this is a big opportunity for UNC as they could get a big quad one win opportunity. Right now they're winless, if I'm not mistaken. They're winless in the quad one win category, as they need to. So this will be a big opportunity for them, but NC State's is kind of reeling as they're coming off um, excuse me, they are coming off a loss at Syracuse, a loss at Syracuse. So you can bet they're going to be a little bit hungry for sure. All right, so I mean still got one more ACC game left to play. So so if NC State wins, not a whole lot's going to change to the standings. Um, the NC State will move into sole possession of fourth place, a half game up on Duke. But if North Carolina wins, they can jump. They can jump Syracuse. They'll be able to jump Syracuse and get that tiebreaker over Syracuse because they have the head-to-head. But Wake Forest, if I'm not mistaken, they beat them. Yeah, Wake Forest beat them, so they will still lose that tiebreaker there. But they could just still jump in position. So again, might not matter as much in the standings, but it definitely matters when it comes to your NCAA tournament hopes for sure. So, and as we look at the bracketology, going into today, and I think we'll get an update tomorrow. But going into today, North Carolina was among the last four in. I mean, Kentucky and North Carolina being the last four in, that is just crazy. But Kentucky and North Carolina being among the last four in. Then you have let's see who are the other the ACC contenders here, and who are the other ACC teams here. Virginia being a 3 seed, and let's see here, Tennessee, no. Duke being a 9 seed, and like I said, Duke's no lock either. But getting that road win over Syracuse could be huge, and I think they could bump up. It'll definitely. I don't think a road win over Syracuse is going to seal things, but it definitely helps. It most definitely helps because they've held serve at home. They've taken care of business at home. I think they're undefeated at home in conference play, but they've struggled a little bit on the road. But they taking but beating Syracuse by 20. I mean, that's what you need to do. So, couple more wins, and I think Duke's a good. I think Duke should start feeling good about themselves. Um, Pittsburgh being a 9 seed, road loss. I don't think it's going to be that devastating. I think they might just drop to. I think they might drop down to a 10 seed, worst case. But I think that is about it. That is really about it. And then let's see who else is playing. Who else is playing? And then, ooh, ooh, I got a little tired there. And then you have Clemson, who's also an 11 seed. They're also among the last four in. So losing to Louisville today, I mean, that is about as damaging of a loss as you can get because they're like Louisville's probably like outside the top 300 in the net. I mean, that's going to move them down quite a bit. And Clemson, after today, is going to need to have a lot of work to do in order to have any shot of an at-large. Because right now, going into today, they were the last team in. With that loss to Louisville, boy, that's going to sting. That is really going to sting. So, Wake Forest, among the teams being considered, they're among the next four out. Obviously, to losing to Miami, on the road, ranked Miami team on the road, not the most damaging, but I mean that's a missed opportunity there. So again, I mean we're getting to crunch time here, guys. I mean, not much room left. I mean, then you have in the regular season, then you have the conference tournament, your last chance, which is the conference tournament, to fight for a spot in the field of 68. So should be an interesting stretch here, for sure. Now, as far as UVA's seeding, uh, also people have been asking is like, well, what is their ceiling? With them, even with their loss to Virginia Tech, even with all the wins they've been pulling out, they haven't really moved up much. I mean, the past couple weeks. I mean, they've been stuck at a 3 seed because just the quality of the opponents that they've been playing is just dragging them down. Not, I mean, the quality of their opponents, not that they're bad. It's just like most of the wins they pulled out haven't really moved the needle much. Home wins over NC State never hurt. Like, ranked team against NC State, that's a solid win. But, losing on beating teams at home like Syracuse, Carolina, Virginia Tech at home, and then they lost on the road. Boston College, Notre Dame. It's not. I mean, of course, today. I mean, especially today, their close win over a struggling Notre Dame team is not going to move the needle at all. I think they'll pretty much stay put. Now, if they win out the regular season, which would mean winning at Boston College, which again, closer to the bottom of the league, but then meaning winning at North Carolina, winning at home at Clemson, and then Louisville. I could see them moving up a little bit. They might move up to a 2 seed. I mean, I think I don't see it. First of all, I don't see them being a 1 seed. I would be surprised, even if they win out the rest of the regular season, win the entire ACC tournament. I don't see them being a 1 seed. I think their absolute best ceiling is going to be a 2. Is going to be a 2, and that's it. And that's if they win out, and that's if they win out the regular season and win the whole ACC tournament, which is certainly possible. I mean, based on the way they've been running through the conference, it's certainly possible. But it's very competitive at the top here. Any of these teams like Virginia, Miami, Pittsburgh, Clemson, or any of these teams down here like Duke, they've been getting hot as of late. What if, or Virginia Tech on a roll here? You never know. I mean, if you remember last year, the ACC tournament winner came from a team that had to play an extra game. So you know it's wide open. I mean, this year it's going to be more wide open than ever. This is all, which is awesome, which is just going to make for the ACC be such a fun and exciting ACC tournament to watch. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I mean, any of these teams can have a shot. Virginia, Miami, Pittsburgh, Clemson. I mean, this is wide open. This is a pretty wide open field here. Outside of Georgia, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, Louisville, and Boston College, maybe Syracuse. Well, Syracuse, Boston College, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, and Louisville. Not looking to do too great, but if you look at some of these other teams like Virginia Tech, you know, Wake Forest, Duke, NC. I mean, this could be pretty exciting. I'm really looking forward to what's to come. I mean, really looking forward. It can't. I mean, the ACC tournament cannot come soon enough, and I'm so excited, so excited. All right. All right, guys. Well, that will do it for now. Thank you for tuning in. Um, and again, I'll probably will come out with another video maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow, see how things shake out. But certainly by Tuesday for sure. Certainly by Tuesday for sure, and after Tuesday's games. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.